everyone, this is Pico Entertainment and we are back again, and here now we have another video for you, and we're going to talk again about social media engagement and whether content creators, directors, showrunners are actually damaging their content by responding to online criticism and speculation. Now, any creator, when you create your own movie, film, book, video, and when you put it out there for viewing, it's always going to leave it open to some sort of criticism. Some will like it, some will hate it. It's very rare that you will receive absolute universal praise and love for your content. Just going by law of averages, it works out that if shown to enough people, you will eventually get some sort of negative response. Eventually, you will find people that think that the Lord of the Rings trilogy is terrible. Now, I would question those people's taste, but whether you agree with it or not, people are still entitled to their opinion, and they're always going to have an opinion on whatever content that you put out there. Now, of course, the nature of social media is that criticism so often turns into personal attacks, vitriolic comments, people pushing out agendas as opposed to actually reviewing the actual content itself. And many creators have found themselves under hateful comments and attacks, which of course is wrong, and personally I don't think enough is being done by the actual social platforms themselves in terms of regulation and preventative measures towards people under attack from hateful comments. Now, as an individual being, creators are entitled to stick up for themselves, defend their own content, and confirm the purpose of it. So if someone interprets it as one way, the creator may not agree with that interpretation, and they may come out and say, this is my intention, this is the purpose, this is what I was trying to do with this product. Now, there's nothing wrong with that, and ideally they should be able to speak freely about their content and protect their own position without being attacked, in the same way that people should be also allowed to criticize constructively certain content without being attacked as well. Now, the issue is, as a creator, when you respond to criticism, you leave your content open to even more attacks and scrutiny, especially if you reply to comments months before your content is actually released. You inadvertently cause a real sense of drama, a perception which becomes more of the focus rather than the actual quality of the content that you're creating. People ask, why is this person responding? Are they hiding something? Is there an insecurity behind their work? Are they not as confident at their work that they need to project some sort of aggressive stance and defense of their actual product? And the longer the drama goes on, the more fake narratives are created, and the majority of that perception becomes negative and toxic about your product itself, making it a lot harder for that product or the content to be overall successful. So by responding, you create an antagonism against your work. People are all too willing to hate and predict Armageddon and disaster for your content months before they release. Now, in terms of movies and entertainment itself, the biggest, most recent examples, of course, involve Captain Marvel. We had the whole fallout behind Brie Larson and the approach by the MCU trying to propel Carol Danvers to the forefront as the next dominant figure behind the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We have Terminator Dark Fate, of course. Certain comments made by Tim Miller involving misogyny really built an anti-feeling towards the project months before it's released. Same as what we saw with Birds of Prey, of course, when, again, comments about misogyny gave people a real negative buzz about the project. And of course, perhaps the most famous one of all, The Last Jedi. We all know the fallout. People watched it, didn't like the way that Luke Skywalker was presented in general, which forced Rian Johnson to come out and make some sort of comments, and then that's what built the overall antagonism towards the future Disney Star Wars and Kathleen Kennedy, etc. And as we saw with all of the release of those films and movies, we saw the downturn in terms of the commercial success and decline that they suffered, partly because of the negative perception that was created by the showrunners and directors and creators responding and biting back at criticisms of their own product. So it really works in the favour of the creator not to reply to comments, regardless of how justified they feel in doing so. It is best just to let the content have its day and be judged on its own merit overall. So recently we've had examples of creators and showrunners responding to comments, and I feel in the long run damaging their own products. Now, of course, the most prominent example is Kevin Smith as we all know, was the showrunner of the Masters of the Universe Revelation animated series recently released on Netflix. This is, of course, was the adaptation of the iconic 80s animated show, deemed to be a sequel or a continuation. I didn't think it was, and you can check out both my non-spoiler and spoiler reviews of that show, and I'll leave the links within the description. But when they initially released the synopsis that it was indeed going to be primarily more focused on Teela, or that after a cataclysmic effect, Teela was going to have to take center stage and restore the balance of good, a lot of people raised eyebrows. And then, of course, when the YouTubers Clownfish put out that tweet regarding an insider source implicating that He-Man was going to be pushed aside in order to Teela to take the prominent role with her girlfriend. Now, by replying to this, Kevin Smith gave the perception that the suggestion might be true. And a lot of hardcore fans who were already concerned about the fact that Teela was taking the spotlight were even more angered by the thought of He-Man being silent, because they thought, well, why is Kevin Smith responding to this tweet? If what Clownfish said wasn't true, then he wouldn't need to respond to it, right? But the fact that he was reacting to this in many ways validated their rumours, even though that wasn't really the case. When you watch the actual content, He-Man wasn't sidelined in terms of stepping aside to Teela. It was how the story played out overall in a different way. But the problem is the perception now is already there. So again, we've had months of instances of Kevin Smith putting out tweets and trying to deny that the storyline wasn't as the case. The suggestion of Teela taken to the forefront wasn't the case. But the more you tweet, the more negative speculation it builds up. And months before the show is actually released, many people had already written off the show because of the perception of Kevin Smith. Many deemed him being a liar and betraying the fans, and that narrative has really taken over any constructive criticism over the actual show itself. People are looking far more to the Rotten Tomatoes scores, the audience reception scores, as opposed to the actual quality of the content itself. So when we come towards part 2, any potential of the show to build on what it set out as a story, it ends on a huge cliffhanger. So rather than taking an interest on how that cliffhanger plays out, everybody's just going to throw again Kevin Smith's tweets and the negative reception towards the score. Therefore, it's going to hurt the show in the long run in terms of becoming a big overall success. The second most recent example was involving James Mangold, who of course is directing the 5th Indiana Jones installment, and they're currently shooting that project right now. Well, it's actually delayed because of an injury to Harrison Ford. Now, when the project was announced, there were already concerns from fans, me included, over Harrison Ford's age, and that the casting of Phoebe Waller-Bridge would yet again be another example, like with He-Man, of the iconic male character of the franchise being sidelined in favour of the female role. Now, Matthew Kadish tweeted concerns that a lot of people had already, so it was nothing new that he brought to the light when he tweeted it out. And then James Mangold responded continuously for about 24 hours to various other YouTube personalities, including Matthew Kadish, making comments about the lack of experience in terms of filmmaking and credentials, being basement dwellers, amongst other suggestions as well. So once again, the perception was that James Mangold was very much looking down on YouTubers, the average Joe, the average critic, the normal viewer. And many people question, why is he responding like this? Shouldn't he be concentrating on making a movie? Why is he so defensive over the project? If he had confidence in the direction that they were taking it in, then it wouldn't matter what Matthew Kadish or anybody else was tweeting about this overall film. So again, the negative reception was built in, and instead of looking forward to the movie, now everyone will reference Mangold's tweets, despite the fact that there's a period of calm because the film isn't due for release until 2022. When the first initial trailer comes out, if there's even an ounce of negativity or a certain scene or a certain line of dialogue that people feel might be very much presenting identity politics or fitting in with a lot of what James Mangold is tweeting, that's it. They're going to write the project off, and then we're going to get another wave of videos and tweets and articles in a negative perspective towards the film, even though it hasn't come out yet. And that's a problem that I think showrunners and creators, they give themselves. Now, yes, I understand this is very much the nature of social media in general. People like negativity, outrage, controversy. And that's not the fault of the creator. That's always going to be there. But the creators themselves, they don't help matters by responding to it. You know, you have to really just let the show have its day and not respond to any comments. Let the film come out on its own. And if the film manages to be successful, then that's how you beat the haters and the trolls, right? The film comes out and it makes lots of money and it gains really good critical reception. Then you look the hero because you were able to not be baited by the negative comments, keep your head down, make your film, and then the haters, they can't respond because your film's a success. So what can they do? Now we look at the MCU, for example, and if there's one franchise that has constant speculation, perception, predictions, negative, for the most part positive, but certainly since I would say the fallout from Avengers Endgame and the beginning of Phase 4, we have to admit that there has been a certain amount of negativity and growing antagonism to see the Marvel Cinematic Universe fail. You know, we've had multiple negative receptions, if you like, and comments made about all of the 3 Disney Plus shows, WandaVision, Loki and the Falcon of Winter Soldier. People accusing them of identity politics and social agendas and mistreatment of the characters and the speculations itself. We look at recently Black Widow, of course. Everybody commenting on recent interviews and comments made by certain directors and Scarlett Johansson and trying to build that narrative that Black Widow was going to fail and begin the end of the era of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So they've had plenty of negative criticism as well, despite being the most successful franchise currently within entertainment. But guess what? Kevin Feige doesn't respond. He doesn't reply to tweets or comments or articles. He very much keeps himself at a certain safe distance. Now, the reason for that is because Kevin Feige knows that if he were to come out and start replying to this, it could affect the overall chances of the various movies and shows that are coming out, because more people will be talking about him rather than the actual content itself. And that's not what Kevin Feige wants. He knows the popularity of the brand and the image of Marvel is very important, and he doesn't want anything to be tainted by comments that he makes on social media, so he takes a step back. We look at some of the biggest actors today in the industry, the likes of Leonardo DiCaprio and Denzel Washington, for example. You very rarely hear them on social media. They don't tweet out anything, they don't post anything in terms of Instagram, and that's because they protect their brand and image because they want to be judged by the quality of their work. And more often, the quality of their work is very high standard. That's why they tend to be amongst the highest successful actors within the industry. So that's really a lesson to learn, really, from content creators and showrunners and executives. There were other examples, of course, recently, but I just thought that both Kevin Smith in particular and James Mangold, they were the most recent examples of what I believe of content creators really just not learning to ignore the criticism and making it far more difficult for their overall content to be successful overall. And I just think it's advisable for many creators and actors themselves, I would even say, to maybe even come off social media and just ignore the negativity, ignore the comments. There's always something else for people to moan about and make videos on within the next hour, within the next 24 hours, whatever. So just ignore the comments and make your own content and focus on making it the best content ever. And then when it comes on, everybody will see how good that quality is, and then they will make positive reviews and positive videos about it, and then that's how you defeat the critics overall. So that's what I think really content creators nowadays really need to learn, to ignore what's on social media and just focus a lot more on making it overall content and making it the best quality possible. Then that will make it the most successful possible, and that's how you can defeat all the haters and the trolls and the critics overall. So those are my thoughts and feelings on recent examples of content creators biting back on comments on social media. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Do you think content creators are justified in replying to comments, especially if they go overboard in terms of being personal attacks, or do you think that content creators should ignore all comments and focus on making their product overall and letting it have its day in the sun and be as successful as possible? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Please also hit and like the subscription and notification buttons so I can provide you with more high quality content like this in the future. But that's it for now. Take care of yourselves, stay at safe distances, and I will see you very, very soon.